Hi, I'm Terrie McClay, and I'd like to share with you a passage from my book, Wind in the Grass is Dancing. Prologue. To the white man, the western frontier was an opportunity for endless expansion, exploration, and homesteading. To the Lakota, the same lands were the home of their ancestors, the place where they stood their lodges, hunted game, offered their prayers, and danced the Sundance. As defined in the Laramie Treaty of 1868, the territory west of the Missouri, stretching as far as the Bighorn Mountains and from the Platte River, extending northward to the Canadian border, belonged to the non-treaty Indians. In 1874, less than a decade later, George Custer, accompanied by over 100 wagons, led an expedition into the Black Hills of South Dakota, clearly Indian territory. With the expedition's discovery of gold, a swarm of prospectors invaded the Black Hills, an abominable violation of everything that the Lakota held sacred, a symbol of conflict, of uncertainty, and of broken treaties. In an effort to protect the prospectors from the angered Lakota, the government offered the sum of $6 million for the purchase of the Black Hills. By autumn of 1875, however, it became apparent that Lakota would not negotiate. On December 12th, despite the terms of the Laramie Treaty, the government of the United States issued an ultimatum demanding that all non-treaty chiefs bring their encampments to the boundaries of the reservations no later than January 31st of 1876. Not all complied. These Lakota were regarded as hostile and considered a threat to the United States of America and to the development of the western frontier. This is the story of one such warrior, one of hundreds and thousands who refused to forfeit their freedom, cultures, and traditions, their ponies and rifles. The Lakota knew this man as Wind in the Grass is Dancing. To the white man, he was dancing wind. Dancing Wind peered over the rise, squinting against the incandescent rays of dawn that fanned behind the Wolf Mountains. His eyes dimmed as they skimmed the valley, cluttered with buildings and fences. Wisps of smoke funneled into the morning sky. The crow of a rooster was followed by the cackling of hens. An elder woman wandered to the hen house, a shawl draped around her shoulders, a woven basket clutched to her breast. A young man stepped from the porch. Gazing to the hills, he swept his hair beneath his Stetson and sauntered to the stable. Dancing Wind reached for the .44 Winchester lying at his side, a carbine that he'd acquired from the traders. Its short barrel was handy when firing from the back of a horse. His hand moved to the butt of the rifle, his fingers grazing the brass tacks that he'd hammered into the image of a buffalo. He frowned at his own resentment. A heart that had struggled in his 25 winters to respect the ways of all men, including those of the white man, was becoming hard as sinew. It is bad enough, he thought, that the white man bleeds the buffalo and leaves them spoil on the prairie, but why sacrifice so many trees? He could understand the Yellowhair's need to build a shelter, but the trees that were sacrificed to this one lodge alone were enough to stand 100 lodges of the Lakota. So much room for so few. Perhaps the white men do not like one another. Every moon brings more and more of the Yellowhairs, flooding the valleys and mountains as if there is no end to their coming. They're a strange breed, these white men, always leaving a trail of destruction. All the medicine on the Earth Mother could not teach them to think as a Lakota. Being Lakota is a thing of the heart. It is something you are born with. The lace curtain feathered away from the second-story window. The small figure of a woman stood by the sill. Her head was bent in the direction of the stable. Her fingers combed through the long curls of silk that fell to her waist. Dancing Wind recalled her scent, her touch, her spirit. As she moved from the window, his smile faded to a frown. His heart burned with resentment. Much as he desired her, Amber was the daughter of a man who was responsible for the death of Arrow. The stallion had been a gift from his uncle. Still, he could not condemn her. A movement from the direction of the stable caught Amber's eye as she passed the empty paddock. Nathan was posted on the rooftop where he was afforded a view of the house, the yard, and the surrounding pastures. He would say nothing to her father. After all, he'd been sweet on her since his arrival nearly 3 weeks ago. She exchanged a smile and waved. Dancing through the fine mist, she breathed deeply of the cool air and the misty scent of dampened soil, of earth and rain. Rain they desperately needed, but the feathery drizzle was not enough to settle the dust and quench the earth. After rifling through an assortment of brushes, combs, and picks, she placed them into a small wooden box and proceeded in the direction of Gypsy's stall. Midway she stopped abruptly. The box and the brushes tumbled to the floor. She stared at the necklace hanging from the peg beside the mare's halter. It was fashioned from a thin strip of dark rawhide. Dangling from its center was the tip of an antler. Adorning either side were bone piping and silver beads. Amber whipped in a half circle, her eyes seeking to find the warrior's bold stare peering from the shadows, where the dim light filtered between the planking. Like the wind itself, Dancing Wind had again stolen into places no ordinary man could pass unnoticed. Lifting the necklace from the peg, she turned it in her palm, pondering its meaning, admiring its beauty and workmanship. With a slow smile, she slipped it around her neck and tucked it between her blouse. She would not breathe a word of it, not even to Daniel. From the waters of the Tongue River, Dancing Wind viewed the sun cresting the snow-capped mountains. From the center of the ball, a fiery beam of orange shot through the morning sky, trimming the silvery clouds in a loose and pale yellow. He had risen before dawn to honor each of the four directions, to smoke and to offer his prayers. Now he lay with his chest pressed to the damp earth. Surrounding him were thick clumps of sagebrush, buffalo grass, high as a pony's belly, fluttered in the breeze. It was abundant, nutritious, and rich in minerals and protein, enough to sustain both the buffalo and the horses. Dancing Wind studied the small circle of lodges tucked within the shadows of the cottonwoods and teeming with activity. He mounted his pony and tugged at the braided lead. The young stallion responded willingly as they approached the village. The bulk of the man's back was to him, but Dancing Wind immediately recognized the brawny figure of Red Badger, tall, big of bone, heavily muscled, and most intimidating. Little Willow was not far from his side, filling her water bag that she had made from the stomach of a buffalo. Dancing Wind's eyes softened as they moved to Rainbow. She was the youngest of his cousins and a real treasure. He had helped to raise her and looked upon her as a man looks upon his daughter, protecting her and securing her future. Many braves had sought to courtship her, but none had succeeded in convincing him or Red Badger of their worthiness. It would take many horses and many honors. Laughter drew his attention, and he turned. Prairie Dog and Moonbeam were engaged in a game of chase while tending to the ponies. To be so innocent, he sighed. Prairie Dog, nearly 18 winters, was the very image of Dancing Wind as a young brave, before the soldiers, before the coughing sickness had taken his wife Flower. She had been so young and with child. The pain was still there after 5 summers, a loss that Dancing Wind had mourned until his heart had blackened against the white man, and his spirit had become vulnerable. In his grief, he had gone to the Bighorn Mountains to the ancient medicine wheel to pray. While there, he made a commitment to Spirit that he would dance at Sundance for 4 summers. The following year, Dancing Wind dedicated his time to counseling with the elders, to endless fasting and prayer, so that he would be strong, mind and body and spirit, when the time came for his sponsor to pierce his chest and insert the wooden pegs through his flesh. Through the offering of his flesh, the one thing that was truly his to give, he prayed that the Great Spirit would see his willingness to give of himself, so that others would not suffer at the hands of the white man. When a dancer has had nothing to eat or drink for days, when his lips have become parched and his mouth and body become so dry that he can think of nothing else, when he has danced in the sun for hours and his feet are bleeding from the sharp stones, when his weight is straining against his pierced flesh until his only solace can be found through prayer, this is when a man is closest to the Great Spirit. For when a man's body is weakened, it is through his suffering that his spirit is made strong. It is a time for healing, a time when the Creator is willing to hear one's prayers. As a young brave, Dancing Wind had witnessed the sun dance on several occasions. This was to be his 4th dance, the last in fulfilling his commitment to the Creator. But this summer he was not to dance. Spirit had come to him in a dream. He had witnessed the invasion of the soldiers, of bullets flying, and of so much bloodshed. No, he was not to dance. He was to save his fortitude for battle and to make ready his medicine for war. Yet the sun dance was his lifeblood, replenishing his spirit, nourishing his passion for life. To not dance was like asking the clouds to hold back the rain. Thank you.